We're recording and live on Facebook. And yep, our participants are joining. And we're,
Jesse, does like
I think,
folks are still joining, or
yeah, I think people are, I think we can start, or if you want to give it a couple minutes, or it's 1:30, so I would start.
okay, wonderful. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Karen Fassell. I'm the president of the board of the Municipal Review Committee. We appreciate everybody's attendance today at our town hall. With me today are my fellow board members of the MRC. We have our executive director, Mike Carroll. We have our MRC attorney, John Pottle, who's with Eaton Peabody, as well as MRC's technical consultant, George Aronson of Commonwealth Resource Management Corporation. And we also have a team of folks here representing our new prospective partners from Innovative Resource Recovery. And what we're going to do today is provide an overview of where we are with the facility. We're going to start off with our executive director, Mike, giving us a summary of what's happened since MRC took over ownership of the facility last August, including the process and sort of schedule for the most recent partner solicitation that we went through. And Jesse, you can go to that next slide, if you would. And after Mike is done with that overview, he's going to turn it over to Innovative Resource Recovery, who will be able to introduce themselves and talk about their due diligence activities and their vision for the facility. And I will come back and wrap it up with a summary of the importance of the work that's happening over the next 2 months. And then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. I'd like to have folks, since we do have a very large audience today, we're going to be taking comments and questions in writing only. So use the Q&A feature to do that, if you wouldn't mind. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike and he will get us started.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everyone, and thank you for attending. On January 31st, 2023, MRC did not extend its exclusivity agreement with Revere Capital Advisors, LLC, for the purchase of the majority ownership of Municipal Waste Solutions, MWS. Revere was awarded exclusivity back in July of 2022, and after missing several closing deadlines since the first closing date was set for September 26 of 2022, MRC could just no longer continue down that path, with Revere not knowing if they could execute the final financing needed for the capital to restart the MWS facility. MRC finances are even more limited as we moved into 2023, and time was of the essence for us. The MRC board decided to move forward and seek other potential partnerships. We notified Revere of this decision and informed them they could still participate, but just would no longer have exclusivity. They would need to move forward with proof of financing confirming at least $20 million was approved and dedicated to the MWS restart, and if any conditions are attached to those dedicated funds. They would need to show proof of the dedicated financing, which MRC would then need to verify before another potential partner is found and exclusivity is awarded to the new party. The clock was ticking. MRC sent a second round of solicitation letters out to potential partners on February 3rd. 10 letters went out to parties that had been in touch with the MRC. These detailed letters stated that the Municipal Review Committee is seeking a private partner to recapitalize and reopen the Municipal Waste Solution recycling and solid waste processing facilities. The letters covered the existing conditions, goals, and tasks for reopening the facility, business terms, and the solicitation process MRC requires. The letters also state that the MRC is open at this point to reviewing any proposals from different technical approaches and processes and achieving the required diversion levels that might be involved, A, in modifications of existing equipment, or B, reconfiguring existing equipment, or making significant changes. Proposals were returned to the MRC February 20th, 2023 for review and evaluation. Out of the 10 potential buyers, 4 of them were hard inquiries, requesting lots of data, scheduling meetings with the MRC and former vendors of the facility. MRC then took the next several weeks after proposal submission, analyzing and vetting that. After MRC board, staff, and consultants reviewed and spoke to everyone, it was narrowed down to 2 proposals. In March, the MRC chose to move forward with Innovative Resource Recovery, Innovate, which was one of the top 2 final proposals. We quickly started working on the term sheet and exclusivity agreement, which was executed with Innovated in late March. Some key terms were executed in the agreement are as follows. MRC retains a 10% ownership in MWS, which includes a seat at the table and one of the MRC staff fulfilling a management role at MWS. A purchase price of $3 million was agreed upon, which provides MRC back the funds used to purchase the facility and pay off the current liens attached to MWS. A $350,000 non-refundable deposit to MRC for exclusivity was required, which we have received. A deadline to close by June 2nd on 90% ownership of MWS. Why did we choose Innovative as MRC's potential partner? They have a division at their firm that specializes in turning around distressed assets. Their financial capability of being backed by a multi-billion-dollar asset management firm. No borrowing funds is needed or seeking investors to close on this transaction. Funds are available to them now. And finally, the team they bring to the table is incredible, with backgrounds in recycling technology, engineering, environmental services, waste long haul operations, and finance. Innovated is eager and will focus on the immediate efforts of the facility upgrades, employment, and restart. So with no further ado, we are pleased to introduce to our members and the public, James Condella, the lead for the Innovative team. James, the floor is yours. Please introduce your team to everyone and tell us a little bit about Innovative Resource Recovery.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good afternoon and thanks, Michael. I'm James Condella and I'm here with Kevin Hogan, and we're excited to be here on behalf of Innovative Resource Recovery. So today we'll just provide a brief overview of the company, along with our current activities and long-term vision for the facility. And from there, answer any questions the membership might have. Innovative Resource Recovery is a newly formed company with the goal of establishing environmentally sustainable solutions for the waste industry. We are backed by White Oak Global Advisors, which is a multi-billion-dollar asset management firm with relevant experience in the waste industry. White Oak specializes in originating and providing finance solutions to support small and middle market enterprises at every stage of their life cycle. And they have a track record of creating value by utilizing a hands-on approach to working with businesses to maximize their full potential. And from what we've seen so far at the Hamden facility and from our experience, the facility has that potential. So we're extremely excited about the opportunity. By way of background, I have 25 years of experience in the energy and environmental services sector. The last 15 years of those have been spent leading various companies in the waste and recycling sector, with experience specifically in a number of different waste conversion technologies over that time. And I'll just turn it over to Kevin Hogan for a moment to introduce himself as well.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I'll be brief. Thank you everyone for taking the time. I recently joined the Innovate team. Prior to that, I spent the last 20 years or so on the investment side of the world. I worked at a number of different firms, really focused on lower and middle market companies. So situations that I think are similar to this. Most recently working at Bayside Capital, which is affiliated with HIG Capital, and again, focused on assets that maybe were unloved, maybe undermanaged. So again, similar situation to here. Very excited to join the team and then really help get the operations going. It seems like really exciting opportunity.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So first and foremost, would like to applaud the MRC members for really realizing the importance of minimizing their community's environmental footprint, and deciding to embark on this journey of landfill diversion, which I know it sounds like it's been a journey for some time. So we'd also like to acknowledge Mike Carroll, the MRC board, and I'm sure countless others that have really cared for the plant over the last few years and have driven the process forward to where we're at today. I'm not going to belabor the point here, but I'm sure most of you are aware of the waste challenge at the regional and national level with increasing volumes of waste, decreasing landfill capacity to accept that waste. And I firmly believe, and we firmly believe, that while it's incumbent upon each of us to reduce the waste generated at the source and from each community member and business, there's still always going to be a waste stream that needs to be managed. So, but the reality is there's significant value in that waste stream. And so Innovative's mission is to really to recover as many resources as we can from that waste stream and really divert what gets put into the landfill. And we see the Hampton facility as a blueprint for what communities across the country can accomplish, who recognize the importance of reducing their footprint on the environment. So I think there's a great, asset at the facility to start with. And so really our near-term focus is technical and commercial diligence that supports a safe and successful restart of the facility. We have a team of technical experts, engineers, and working with the different equipment suppliers to actively review the physical condition of the equipment, as well as look through the historical operations to assess what's the functionality of each process, what's required to get it back up and running. And from there, that kind of then determines, as we're in that process now, that will then determine what are those retrofits, what's the cost, what's the time to get those up and running, and how can we get back to, I'll say, reliable and profitable operations. At the same time, we're also working with local stakeholders to understand what are the other requirements from a regulatory perspective, community perspective, that are required to make sure the restart meets the needs of the community. So next slide. Great. So, based upon the outcome of our findings then, and after the close, we anticipate continuing forward with that detailed engineering effort to make the necessary improvements to the facility. That would happen throughout the balance of 23 as we're ordering equipment, working on the detailed engineering, with an eye towards restarting the facility in 2024, processing waste and getting the different diversion systems up and running. Over that time, we'll also be working with local contractors and service providers in the community to execute on those improvements while also hiring the necessary local operators and staff to support the restart. So the plan after that is, once we establish stable baseline operations, we hope to continue to expand the company's capabilities and offerings to better serve the community. We're going to continue to look for ways to deploy additional technologies and processes that will increase the amount of landfill diversion. But we also hope to collaborate with the MRC member communities to identify innovative solutions to other waste problems they may have, all with an eye towards demonstrating a reliable, profitable process that is ultimately the blueprint that can be rolled out to other communities across the country. So we're just really excited about what's here. it's such a tremendous opportunity, and we really appreciate being selected by the MRC. So hopefully this was helpful, and happy to answer any questions that the members might have. A lot of what we're working on right now is confidential, so my apologies in advance if we're not able to provide all of the details, but we'll do our best. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Michael and Karen.
Thanks, James. Appreciate that. We're very excited about Innovative's proposal and exclusivity agreement with us, and we're super excited about the level of engagement that you all have shown. It's hard to imagine, but Mike is actually having a hard time keeping up with you all. You guys are firing on all cylinders, so we're very, very encouraged by that level of effort and engagement on your part. So we appreciate that, and we're also very excited. The board as a whole is very excited in Innovative sort of interest in working towards as much as possible having the facility, be as zero waste as possible. And we our visions, I think, are very much in alignment with that regard. And I think there's a lot of benefits to working together with somebody like Innovative, a very motivated private partner. So we're very encouraged by that. But for our members out there and other community stakeholders, we've learned that we cannot count our chickens before they hatch. So the results of the, as Mike has said, MRC's resources are very limited and cannot support the facility for much longer. So the results of these next 2 months are going to be very telling for whether the facility is going to be able to continue process waste as it was designed or not. Innovative's going through its due diligence. We do hope for a positive outcome in the timeframe that Mike described by June 2nd. However, should for some reason that not come to fruition, if Innovative decides it doesn't meet their business needs or their business model for whatever reason, we do want to make sure that we have an alternative in place that will allow us the access to the financing needed to restart the facility. To that end, we've been meeting with folks at the state level. On March 8th, MRC had the opportunity to brief the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, which went very well. The committee as a whole was very receptive to the issue, very open to listening to what we had to say. They're very aware of the constraints in this region with regard to waste processing. And I think our presentation helped educate them even further on that. It actually helped that the sludge issue was also right at the fore at the same time, because that sort of brought all the issues together for them and helped them further understand the importance of a facility like this to help keep waste away from landfills. They followed up, the E&R committee followed up with us with a request for more detailed information, which we were able to send to them last week. And let's see, on Tuesday, Mike, myself, and Aaron Hootery, MRC's vice president, will be meeting with the Department of Economic and Community Development Commissioner Johnson to discuss financing options. We think ultimately the solution will require some sort of legislation in this session to address MRC's ability to get access to loan financing. But we are working on that with the hopes of having an option available to us in the June-ish timeframe should the partnership with Innovative not work out for some reason. So our goal is very much to make this facility a success this year, one way or the other, and to get it up and going. So I think with that, I will maybe head into take some questions. I know folks have a lot of questions, and so I think I'm going to start going through them and see if we can address people's particular concerns rather than us just talking and talking on. So let's see. I'm going to start with some questions we received in writing today earlier, and I'm just going to read the questions. Some of these obviously were addressed in the presentation we just did, but I'd like to read them out anyway, just so folks can hear what sort of questions other folks are asking. What will the MRC do to ensure that no mismanagement happens this time? What evaluations of performance will be employed before a shutdown occurs? This is a reference back, I presume, to the Fiber 8 coastal days when part of the reason for their shutdown, perhaps was some management issues on their side. And as Mike mentioned in his presentation, in this partnership terms, MRC will have a seat at the table and be part of the management team that is responsible for the oversight of the facility. So we're encouraged by that and feel like that is going to give us an opportunity to have boots on the ground and view inside the facility that we did not have under the agreement and arrangement with Coastal. The next question is, will MRC ask the state of Maine for financial support? And as I indicated, we are working with the state to help them allow us to secure loan financing. We're actually not, we'd accept a grant and a handout, but we're actually not looking for that. We feel like the facility will be able to be profitable and enough to pay back principal and interest on a loan. MRC is really not able to access a loan because this facility is not of the sort that can be easily appraised and act as its own collateral. And that's been a real sticking point, and that has prevented us from being able to get traditional commercial loan financing. So we're looking for some sort of like a state credit guarantee that would back us being able to get a loan. So that is what the angle that we're working on with the state.
Karen, before you get to the next question, I just thought that the other board members and the members from Innovative could turn their videos back on. So folks.
Oh, that's great. Good idea. Thanks, Jesse. Another question. What will the MRC do with materials that cannot be recycled? Where will these materials go? Mike, you want to take that one?
Sure. So for the residuals, the leftover of the non-use and the non-recyclables, the current contract is with the Crossroads landfill down in Norwich-Walk. And that's for just the residuals of the MSW. As we look at other things, the bulkies and metals and those type of things, relationships can be developed for those, but the current contract for residuals is with Norwich-Walk. Crossroads.
Thanks, Mike. Another question is, which energy reclamation plant, if any, will the MRC use for incineration? And as Mike sort of alluded to, at this point, we do not have any intention or contract to incinerate waste. Currently, we do have an agreement with PERC as an interim arrangement for waste disposal. But going forward, once the plant's under operation, that any relationship with PERC or any other facility in the state other than Crossroads would need to be developed, I think, as Mike mentioned. So, all right, another question. How will the MRC's agent handle bypass? And I'm assuming MRC's agent may be the new partnership. Mike, you can answer that?
So as part of this agreement that we're working with Innovative is MRC will continue to manage the waste just as we are doing now. And that will also help them to focus on the core things, like getting the plant restarted and those type of things. So it would be handled very similar to how we're handling now. Bypass notices would go out. It goes out to each member directing on where their waste needs to go while we're in bypass. But MRC will continue managing the bypass.
And just for folks to know, bypass is when the facility is not able to accept waste. It's called bypass, and it needs to go to some other facility to be disposed. So if the facility's down for maintenance or something like that, and the waste needs to go somewhere else in that interim, that's referred to as bypass. So, okay. Will new monies invested with MRC be used to pay back prior investors? I think that maybe this question is asking about prior investors, meaning prior investors in the facility, like the bondholders and the private equity folks that were the ones that paid to construct the facility. So the current arrangement term sheet calls for Innovative to pay MRC, I believe, Mike, it's $3 million. And that those funds would essentially go to reimburse MRC for the $1.5 million it paid to purchase the facility from the bondholders, and will be used to pay off the several liens that still exist that we have negotiated settlement agreements for. So no money will go to the bondholders and the private equity folks. Those folks and the prior owners are all out of the picture. Those financial obligations with those folks have all been severed. That was severed as of last August when MRC purchased the facility. So hopefully that answers that question. If not, perhaps the person who asked it could submit a follow-up question. Will the new management of the facility import waste from out of state? No. So we will not take out of state waste. We have no need to take out of state waste. This region generates plenty of its own waste. And, you know, going into the development of this facility, our goal was to size the facility appropriately for the needs of this region and to not oversize it. So there's no need to ever take any out of state waste. Okay, how will the purported $20 million needed to resurrect the plant be spent? This refers to the funds that we've been talking about needing to raise to reopen the facility. And if we were going to follow the sort of member ownership model and do it ourselves. Mike, can you sort of walk people through that 20 million and how it would be used and what sort of timetable that would be on?
Yeah, I mean, I can do my best with it. Of course, this was the MRC looking at it, but it's really in three buckets, that 20 million. So there was 8 million or so for the profit improvement plan and getting the gas. That's everything it needed to get you know, the bottlenecks and the bugs that were identified when it was running to get the improvements done on those. And then we have to bring back the staff and all the rolling stock, all the gear to you know, unload the waste and load the waste into the equipment. So you're looking at another 3 or 4 million to do that. And then the last bucket was just cash flow to bring everything back and get the plant up and going and profitable again. We were looking at 18 to 24 months. And so the final balance of that monies was just the reserves and the cash flow till we got to that point. So when we were looking at it, best case scenario, we were looking at have to put waste on the floor within 6 months of starting things. And that was just enough waste, calling on waste here and there to test the equipment. Within 9 to 10 months, we were looking to have the MRF fully operating again. And within 12 to 14 months, we were looking to have the wet end up and going.
Thanks, Mike. And it is important, I think, to note, like you did, that a good chunk of the 20 million was essentially for working capital to ensure that we could have the time needed to be able to know that we're going to be running in the red until you get to be able to run in the black, you know, after that 18 or 24 months or so of startup period. So. Okay, what current models of waste management operation will the MRC follow? For example, an EcoMain model, a PERC model, a Casella model. Well, I'd like to say we're going to be following our own model. So we're charting our own path. This facility is unlike any facility in the state or the country for that matter. It combines several proven technologies together to maximize the diversion from the waste stream. So it will not be incinerating anything. It will be pulling out recyclables, like in a normal traditional sense of recyclables, your glass, your metals, your plastics that you might find in a traditional recycling program, but then it's going to go further and it's going to pull out commodities that can't be recycled because they're contaminated in some sort of way, like your dirty pizza box, diapers, paper towels, things that you would not be able to do in a traditional recycling program, but those sorts of things will go to a pulper and be made into a pulp product. The plastics that aren't available in a traditional recycling program, like garbage bags and your floppy packaging materials, your saran wrap, those sorts of plastics will be pulled out and shunted over to equipment to make into a fuel briquette. The wash water used for the fibers will then, get all the organic materials and be sent to the anaerobic digester, where that will be converted into a biogas. So I would say waste management is going to be enhanced in terms of being able to increase the level of diversion and productive use of the waste. So we're very excited about that opportunity and looking for all the different ways that we can even further, commoditize or commoditize, I don't know what the word is, to the waste stream, to the environment's benefit and to our members' benefit, and if we have a private partner, to their benefit. With the goal of reduce, reuse, recycle, where in the recycle part is where we come in, and we're going to maximize that. So, and then the last question for this person is, what trash pickup company will collect materials bound for the facility? And so trash collection is, that's managed individually by our communities. So it's whoever they choose to work with to pick up. So MRC is not involved with the hauling of the waste to the facility. That's up to each community. So whether they contract with Casella, some communities have their own staff that they use to collect the waste and bring it to the transfer station or to the facility. So that's up to each of our members. So, all right. Got done with those. We got a bucket more of questions coming in here. Let's see. How many employees does Innovative have, and how long has it been formed? That one sounds like it's for you, James.
Sure. So Innovative was recently formed based upon the relationship that White Oak had developed with the MRC. After pursuing the opportunity, Kevin and I joined along to develop that. So as from an operators on the ground perspective, we don't have the local staff in place yet. Obviously, we need to get to that position, to close the transaction, to have that. But, our view is having those employees on the ground that are local to the community, so they're there 24/7. So hopefully that kind of provides a little more color.
Thank you. All right, the next one's for you as well. What is the White Oak backing, and is the capital committed?
So yeah, so White Oak, and I'll do my best, as a asset manager that has committed capital and deploys that capital via funds to different companies. And so in this regards, they control the capital that is needed for this process, so don't need to go out and go through perhaps a subsequent capital raise. So hopefully that's the answer.
All right. Looks like we've got some more questions for you. So
yeah.
You mentioned waste conversion experience. Would this include waste to energy, and is that a possibility at this particular facility?
So my own experience across different companies has been in when I say waste conversion, it's a number of different wastes, whether it's used oil, whether it's plastics, whether it's anaerobic digestion. As far as waste to energy as a combustion source, so that's not currently in the plans at the facility. Though I would say, we are looking for the best available technologies, and so don't have a predetermined kind of that we're at. Our current base plan is only diverting a certain portion of the waste, which leaves additional waste to be diverted. So we're currently looking at all options.
And I might also point out that there has been discussions, pretty much by everybody who's been involved with the facility, of the possibility of using biogas or some of the products to help power the facility itself. So, I mean, that to me, that seems like an obvious natural thing, but I suppose that's a form of waste to energy.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I always think waste to energy in the traditional sense of combustion, but you're right. We are, anaerobic digestion and conversion to a higher grade, renewable natural gas is indeed, in our evaluation.
All right. What are the technical modifications, upgrades, processes being considered to be implemented? What is Innovative's experience with these technologies? What is the scale of those operations? Who will be the operator of the plant? Will there be a further process for MRC members to influence decisions? Okay.
All right.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Yep.
So, Mike, could you talk a little bit about the sort of profit improvement plan in general? And then maybe James can talk more specifically about some of the questions related to Innovative's experience with some of the plant's technologies and things and the scale of those operations.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the first piece. So, when Fiberite was running the facility, remember, they were getting ready to close on a loan to get over the hump of needing the more capital. And there was profit improvements identified by them and their engineering team that took the bottlenecks and the bugs that needed to be looked at the plant. One of the only advantages that came out of this closure is the bondholders actually sent in a engineer to review that profit improvement plan. And then we've seen other buyers come in and review that profit improvement plan. And although people might say, they need a little bit different pump or they need a little bit different here, everybody was pretty much on the same page. So I guess one advantage that we have is what the plant needs to be fully efficient and get at a max diversion rate is been identified. And it's been identified and looked at by several parties, and they're all kind of on the same page with that. And of course, we've turned that information over to Innovative. So when that's when we spoke the $20 million earlier, that's the piece we were talking about the first bucket for the funds on that plan. James?
Yep. Yeah. And so obviously I'll say the MRC kind of had that plan, and our activities currently are reviewing that plan, really diving into each element of the plan, including which are the unit processes, right? You have the front end, the pulper, the digester, the briquetter, you have all these technologies, and kind of going one by one and identifying how do we approach a startup? Do we deploy all of them? What's the capital associated with that? And really kind of building from the bottoms up our own plan for how we're going to go from day zero to commercial operation. So I'd say, we're evaluating all of those upgrades that Mike mentioned. I think the question also asked about our experience. So between our team, as well as our technical consultants, engineers, and equipment suppliers, have relevant experience in different waste conversion technologies and processes. And so understand, what I'll say are the challenges and opportunities that present themselves in each of those processes. So experience across, again, the front end on sorting, the back end on anaerobic digestion. There's been tremendous progress over the years in these areas to improve upon. And so obviously we're leveraging kind of all of that recent experience here as we look at upgrading this plant. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to add, we got to remember this is a new relationship, and to go off of what you said, time is of the essence. This is something they just started diving into and looking at all these technologies and what the plant does. And technologies have changed too. They have advanced quite a bit in the last few years. So the one thing I mentioned when I said how aggressive they were is it's nice to see them looking at every aspect of the plant and what it can do. I will say this is the first time that I spoke with somebody that actually went over and looked at the residuals and said, okay, now this is what goes to landfill. What more can we get out of it? So that we get down, so we just maximize that number.
Yeah. And just lastly, and I think Karen, the last question I'm going to punt back to you and Michael is, who will be the operator of the plant. So our current plan is to hire all local operators. Obviously the plant, from the technical folks, down to the operations, drivers, etc. So that'll all be local. And we're working through now the organization of that. So
basically, you're not anticipating a contractor. You're not going to contract operations out. You're going to have a local team.
Not anticipating it this time. But again, but we're also want to see who brings what to the table in our discussions. So,
can you talk about the scale of operations you and other folks on your team have been involved with in prior, opportunities that you've worked on?
Yeah. So so I'll speak, and obviously the rest of the technical team isn't here. But I've had exposure in food waste recycling, which was diversion of over 500,000 tons a year of material to different diversion sources, whether that's anaerobic digestion, animal feed, composting. So a lot of familiarity on that side. Worked in scale recycling plants where we took bales of plastic and broke them open and to then further shred them down. And in my time, have evaluated my years of experience, evaluated dozens of I'll say technologies in the waste conversion world. Some of them great ideas, just never, we just never felt confident enough to pursue. So have a very what I'll say is kind of upfront, close view of the different technologies out there, what our team brings to the table as far as the risk assessment of those, and how and when to deploy them here at Hamden.
Super, thank you. And the last question of this set of questions was, will there be a further process for MRC members to influence decisions? So I will ask perhaps John to jump in here, but my understanding is that with this term sheet, which aligns with the elements of the term sheets that have been shared and put through the MRC fundamental matters process, that if this does come to fruition with Innovative, this would not be put back out to members in any format other than to say, your waste will be coming to the plant soon. But John, perhaps you could say that perhaps in a different way.
Yeah, I'll just provide a little bit more detail. It's a very good question. So as Karen had mentioned, the substantive framework, I'll call it, of where we're anticipating a potential transaction or partnership with Innovative really mirrors what we've been considering all along back in the fall. So as members may recall, back in late September, there was a notice of fundamental matters that went out. That went out because the potential transaction or partnership with a private sector partner involved the sale of an asset more than $100,000. That's the LLC membership interest of Municipal Waste Solutions, which right now is 100% owned by MRC. There's an contemplated extension of the site lease and a contemplated extension of the master waste supply agreement. So those are both fundamental matters, subject areas, and there's although debatable whether it's a fundamental matter. We thought it was important for MRC members to know that rebates, although not going away and they'd still be qualified for rebates, the formula or origin from where they come from would essentially be distributions reflective of the ownership that remains of Municipal Waste Solutions. So all of those fundamental matters that I just mentioned are exactly the same going forward. Similarly, a lot of the other components, although they're not fundamental matters, are very similar going forward. For example, as Mike had mentioned, it's contemplated there'll be an MRC management component, services agreement associated with that. That still remains the same. The one thing that we are obviously working on are specific amendments to, for example, the site lease and the master waste supply agreement. Those details are in progress and will be forthcoming. Specific to the question, there's still going to be more information shared and communicated to members as we progress along the schedule. So by way of example, there will be more detail on some of those amendments that will be specifically proposed, that will be provided to members before closing occurs. That harkens back to the joinder agreements between MRC members and MRC, where MRC makes sure that there is appropriate notice and opportunity to be heard and comment as that moves forward. So that was contemplated back in September. Is still contemplated today. So this won't be the last time that MRC members receive communications and information as this potential transaction goes forward. So there'll be much more to come as that is communicated to members. That in turn clearly provides an opportunity, as well as future meetings like this, for members to provide feedback. And I'm sure it's always the case that if a member wants to reach out, whether it's to Mike, maybe potentially to a specific board member, in between meetings, there's always that opportunity to do so, to provide questions and comments.
Thank you, John. And to that end, I'll let folks know we do have a regular quarterly board meeting coming up on April 26th, and that will be in a hybrid format, so in person and online, and we'll provide another opportunity for us to give you a further update and have folks who are interested in coming to ask questions or make comments. Well, that will be an opportunity as well. And I will also just indicate that, with this proposed partnership, MRC will have a seat at the table, and in that way we'll be able to have influence over, decisions that are made, at the plant level, about how things are handled, and we'll have an opportunity to provide input in that regard. So, okay, let's keep going. We've got a lot of questions here. I'm hoping we can get through them before we need to wrap up here at 3 o'clock. So, does Innovative plan to restart the plant with pulp? James.
So evaluating all opportunities for that fiber stream at this time. Obviously, turning on the pulper is one of them, but there are other opportunities to do things with the fiber, and that's kind of part of our diligence process as we think about each individual unit process. So,
Okay.
To be determined.
How was the 10% ownership decided? Mike, do you want to start with that, or I don't know if that's your question or a George question, or?
I think that's, that's something that George and I went over. I think it's a great question for George.
Thanks. Thanks, Michael. I guess the answer was that we put out a solicitation letter to see what responses would come back. The 10% was considered a target in that letter, as I recall, and Innovative responded that they would honor the number that was higher and a better deal for the MRC than some of the other responders or entities that considered responded. So it was considered a favorable attribute in evaluating the Innovative proposal.
Thanks, George. What are the challenges or solutions you foresee with the PFAS issue?
Yeah, great question. And that's one, obviously we're going to need to be in communication with Maine DEP on what's coming down the pipe with regards to regulations and restrictions around PFAS. Obviously, understanding where your products go is key to that, and full disclosure on to those customers that are buying those products. So it's evolving. So I don't have a concrete answer for you on that one, other than engagement with the local regulatory authorities and our partners.
Thanks. Can Innovative or MRC give us examples of other plants that Innovative runs? So James, can you talk about a little bit more about the experience with actual facilities and management oversight of facilities?
Yeah, so I can't, this extends to a lot of our partners that are working on the project. What I'll say is kind of folks who are under NDAs and during this diligence phase we're working on. So engineers, equipment suppliers, et cetera, that have this experience at other facilities. So needless to say, it does include anaerobic diet and numerous levels of anaerobic digestion, from food-based digestion to manure digestion, and the whole gamut of renewable natural gas. On the front end, it includes different, the equipment suppliers and the plants that they have provided systems to, as well as engineers that have experience in running material recovery facilities, both single stream traditional recovery facilities, as well as what I'll say are more kind of mixed waste processing facilities. And then beyond that, exposure to different, I'll say, conversion technologies. There are some that are commercial, there are some that are up and coming. And so I think whether it's us on the team that have direct experience or our engineers and consultants that have, you know, the relationships with those firms that we're speaking to, that kind of broadens the network of the different, what I'll say, the different plants that have been run.
I think this gets a little bit at, you know, in the past, we've had experience with some interested parties that were a little bit more talk rather than action, or perhaps overinflated their actual direct experience in their, you know, in their field. So I think people might be interested in hearing more specifics in terms of actual names of facilities and, you know, like confirmation that folks that are working on your team actually, you know, had, you know, practical, measurable experience at that facility.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where they're going with that.
Well, let me tell you what, Karen, let me get back to you on kind of speaking with our different partners and saying, okay, well, you know, is it okay at this point if we can disclose kind of the different engineers and, you know, consultants and their relevant experience, and we could look at putting something together to answer that question.
And even if you have a CV that we could maybe share with folks, I think that might go a long way too.
Okay.
We have somebody who's interested in having your contact information. And what I'd like to say is anybody who's interested in directing questions to our potential partners, that could go through our executive director, Mike, and he will field that and get the answers that you need from the folks that you need. How large is the table of which MRC gets one seat? James, you can answer this, but I did hear that I believe the concept is the management team is anticipated to be no smaller than 3 and no larger than 5. I don't know if that's changed or not, but I don't know if you or Tom wants to take that.
No, I think that's still currently contemplated. You know, we're early on. We've been focusing on the what I'll say is the technical commercial diligence, and I think, you know, those discussions are forthcoming, but no change at this point.
While it was stated funds are available, are funds committed?
Yes.
Okay.
But and just to be pending, you know, obviously conclusion of our diligence and getting to satisfactory terms. So
Yeah.
just wanted to make that clear.
What happened to the Revere bid? That seemed to be well developed. Mike, you want to review that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it.
I can field that, Aaron, if you want.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
interject. I just to specifically say, I don't know where the question's coming from, and I'm sure it's a genuine question, but I don't think it would be appropriate to really speak in any detail on that in this type of forum. So I'm going to just say there's really no comment on that, because I don't think it'd be appropriate to discuss that in a public forum.
All right, thank you, John. Mr. Condella spoke of beginning commercial operations in 2024. Did he mean working with local industries and their waste, or does he mean commercial operations meaning accepting municipal waste?
Oh yeah, it's it's a term for accepting the first waste to really start commissioning the plant.
Very good. What personnel does the MRC have to execute an independent restart of the plan? So I'm assuming this relates to should we follow a member ownership model and obtain a loan? And, you know, Mike, do you want to just briefly touch on how that would work if we end up going down that route?
Yeah, so MRC's intent would be to hire an operator, which we have spoke to operators in the past. And they would have to be revised, but we've actually sought proposals prior to. So I believe that answers the question.
Okay. This is similar to a question that was asked before, but James, just keep this in mind here. Can you share examples of specific sites that Innovative has significant experience in? So that's what folks are looking for.
Yep, and again, just to be clear, Innovative is an entity given it was newly formed, does not have an innovative site. So we're relying on the experience of our partners and our, our both consultants, engineers, and for example, myself, for that experience, but we can put something together.
Okay. The MRC keeps saying it will run out of money. How much capital does the MRC have to survive? Mike?
Yeah, so right now we currently have, I believe it's right around $2 million in the bank between all of our accounts. And so but we also just received a $350,000 deposit on the purchase of the facility. So with winter over, that's a little bit, so between the deposit and with winter over, that's a sigh of relief. We don't see the high energy cost bills, utility cost bills right now. So just over 2 million, but our bills have dropped when it comes to the carrying costs of the plant considerably. Now that we're here into the spring.
So, and I want to be clear that, when we say MRC's resources are running short, we don't ever anticipate getting to a point where we can't pay our bills. But we know that we need to give our members lead time if we feel like the facility is not going to be reopenable. We need to give our members lead time for them to be able to make other waste arrangements and for us to be able to responsibly shut down the plant and turn it over to another owner in a liquidation form. So we need to make sure that we have enough resources to be able to get through that process that we anticipate will probably take 6 months or so. So we can't wait until we've run out of funds to be able to tell folks that we can't make a go of it. So that's why we feel like these next couple of months in the early summer is a very critical time. It's kind of a make it or break it for the facility. So it's a full court press, and we're feeling very encouraged and hopeful that we'll be able to get a solution in these next couple months. But it's going to take a lot of work, and a lot of support from everybody out there. So, okay, what examples of reduction at the source would be left for local communities to address? Whew, where to start? So there's really an endless array of ways that communities could reduce at the source or encourage their residents to and taxpayers and businesses to reduce at the source. So, I mean, people can implement pay-as-you-throw programs or other sorts of incentives to minimize the waste that they're needing to dispose of. Our feeling is that this region generates enough waste that people can do that. We want people to be able to feel like they can do that if that's what they want and that's what their residents want. That is overall where we feel like the state should be headed. And we want to be able to support that for the communities that want to pursue something along those lines. So we feel like the facility is sized appropriately to be able to still accommodate the waste from this region and allow folks to really be able to have those sorts of reductions at the source measures that they feel like they'd like to take. And we'd also like to help facilitate that to the extent possible. I know at one point way back in the early days, we were talking about, trying to get textiles out of the waste stream, like how to help our members, generate or develop, ways to be able to get textiles out and then get those textiles to some other processor or some other source that could utilize those things that don't go so well through the facility. We think there's a lot of opportunities for that sort of diversion. We want stuff to go to the facility that the facility can handle well and can divert well, and that ends up being, productive and helpful for the facility as well as economically. MRC we feel is an excellent resource to help our members manage those, harder to manage waste streams and those sorts of issues. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. So we look forward to being able to exploit those opportunities as we can once the facility is up and running. Will fines be used as alternative daily cover at Norge Walk? And will that still be considered recycled? So I guess the question is, what's going to happen to the fines, and are we going to count that as recycling, or maybe is the state going to count that as recycling? I'm not quite sure what the question is. But
I can take that if you'd like.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So Yes, the fines will be daily cover, and it's 50% of that number that is put towards recycling. But the goal eventually with the fines is that as part of the profit improvement plan also would be to get those clean enough to possibly look back at our members for use in road building or drainage. Right now, that is one of the things on the checklists that need some efficiency and some cleanup to get some stuff out of it. And when it gets to that point, the hopes would be to use it for something greater than daily cover. But daily cover is a necessary evil that is needed, you know, for odor and to keep trash from blowing around everywhere. So if MRC were having this facility, that is how we would start with the fines.
Thanks, Mike. Are the discussions with the state an exception to the exclusivity agreement with Innovative Resource Recovery? I'm not sure about what you mean by exception, but the exclusivity agreement we have recognizes MRC's need to continue working with the state for alternative plans. So I think that's what that question is referring to.
And if I could just add, Karen, it's Plan B for the MRC. It's if this doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
We're not working on both options at the same time to pick the best deal. It's our plan B.
Yeah, thank you. That's much better stated. What is the DEP view? Is the plant properly permitted? Who's that, Mike?
Yes, yes. We just went through, we started in August, right after we owned the plant. I think we had employed Haley Ward within 2 weeks after our ownership of the plant to fill out all the applications for a global transfer with the DEP, and the permits remain active during that time. And the global transfer has all been done and sent to Commissioner for signature. In fact, it's probably on its way here now. 2 weeks ago, it was at the Commissioners for signature.
Thanks. I'm going to combine the next two questions together because they're kind of related. Where does the $20 million estimate come from, and has the PIP, the profit improvement plan, been updated? You want to take that, Mike, or maybe for George?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Okay, just to say, first of all, yeah, the 20 million is an estimate, but as you've heard, Innovative is in the throes of its own due diligence effort, and so they're actually going to be doing their own estimate of how much capital is they would be required to put in by the end of their diligence efforts. And so, you know, it's an active, living number.
All right. Anything to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, I will just add, it was updated with, when we've gone through a couple of rounds with different buyers due to supply and demand and inflation, it did get updated not too long ago on goods and supplies.
Thanks. Is pulp the final product, and where will it go to be sold and to whom?
So I'll take that. So pulp is a potential final product, and I think that's part of our diligence now is, analyzing the efficacy of the system that's there and what to do with that fiber stream. So, and the whom kind of
it would be a commodity in and of itself, right? I mean, that would be something you would sell to somebody who would use that product.
Oh yeah, of course. If that is the path we go down on how to convert kind of that we'll say is that fiber stream. Still working on the to whom, and I have an outreach to different folks.
Mike, do you want to talk about folks that we talked to about potential outlets for that pulp?
Yeah, so there's been no offtake agreement, of course, because things have to get up and going. But we've had many folks that have reached out to us in several different scenarios. Some folks say that the pulp is excellent to be molded into a packaging material. Other folks just want the feed of the pulp for whatever type of fiber they're doing. So there's nothing conclusive at this time, but I am excited since we've had it in our ownership, of the number of folks that have shown interest in it and the different uses that they want the pulp for, whether it be the pulp, the feed, many different things. I was amazed at how much pulp can be used for. So that's been very active.
All right. Will municipal wastewater sludge biosolids be utilized at the plant? Well, the plant is not designed to accept biosolids. So I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that issue. No. So not at this time. Anything with regard to that would have to be down the road a ways and in agreement with the town of Hampden, of course. But, that being said, MRC as sort of a facilitator for local governments would, love to help our communities be part of that solution in however that might manifest itself. So whether at the site or at other sites or in any way. So, all right. Is there any proof that the plant worked? Whew. Mike, your favorite question.
Yes, absolutely. We ran for 7 months at commercial operations. During some of those times, we hit in the high 50s and the low 60s for a recycling rate, and not everything was being looked at then or up and going, like the gas, for instance. So yes, the plant works. You see a lot in the media and in everything else that the unproven technology. And what I like to say is, this was not technology built in somebody's garage of switchboards and that type of thing. This was equipment bought off the shelf from one of the world's largest manufacturers of waste process equipment, and it was put in the right order. And it was an $80 million plant that the switch got flicked on, and it ran for 7 months. And so, of course, it had bugs and bottlenecks that had to be worked out. That's why we have the profit improvement plan. But MRC and an independent engineer went in and conducted a performance test before they went into commercial operations. They passed that performance test on the MRF with being able to process the tons and what was being pulled out. We recognized where things needed to improve, but we didn't see anything that couldn't be fixed. And it absolutely works.
And Karen, I think I could probably roll this into the next question as well to kind of build on what Mike suggested with regards to technologies. So, fundamentally they work. And so the question is, do they work economically? So there's a difference between the two, right? And that's kind of what we're working on right now. Our belief is that it can and will work. And so we're just diving into now, how do you get that to be the case on a 24/7 consistent basis that has reliability for us as the operator and investor, and for you as the community supplying the waste. So the technologies, obviously the front end, it has a great, what I'll say is, material recovery sorting system, right? And for folks who may or may not know, screens, some bag openers, trommels, the way you saw, you sort and separate the waste and optically sort and, I'll say kind of separate it into its different streams. That's fundamentally at the front end of the process, and it's, something we're working on. Obviously the anaerobic digestion piece of all of the organic and digestible components. Another process to help minimize waste diversion and recover those resources. And now, and again, it's evaluating the briquetter and the pulping operation and those films and paper streams. How do we maximize value, divert from landfill, but also do so that for what's most economical for the partnership with the MRC.
Great, thank you. With the one bin all-in model that has been used so much lately, how is contamination to paper and cardboard prevented? So the benefit of this model that we're working towards with this facility is that it takes all the waste together, and contamination of the recycling stream really isn't an issue. The facility's front end that James just described separates the waste streams, pulls off those commodities that are not contaminated, that are able to be sold as a recycled commodity in and of itself, whether that's metals or plastics or cardboard, mixed paper. Those get baled and sold as a traditional recyclable like you'd see at any recycling facility. But the benefit, the great benefit of this facility is those things that do come in that are contaminated, or things that people wouldn't necessarily traditionally think are recyclable, but wish they were recyclable, the facility will be able to recycle those. It's going to take the dirty cardboard and the dirty diapers and the dirty, paper towels and things and put them into pulp. It's going to take the plastics that you can't really recycle traditionally and make them into a fuel briquette and those sorts of things. So this really addresses the issue of recycling contamination that's really plaguing a lot of the traditional curbside recycling programs, where people wish things could be recycled. It's creating a lot of work for folks at the recycling facilities or at the transfer stations to manage that contamination, or folks putting things in that are not clean, that therefore go on to contaminate the rest of the clean recyclables. This facility is able to accommodate that and use it to its benefit. The organics that were inside the glass jar that somebody recycled, they're going to get washed out and go into the anaerobic digester, and the dirty pizza box is going to go into the pulper, and they're going to be able to recover that fiber even though it could not be recycled in a traditional recycling program. So to me, that this and us, this feels like a win for being able to maximize the amount of recyclables you can get out of a waste stream. All right, innovative question for you. What part of this facility is the most exciting to you?
Oh, good question. So I was, having toured the facility and, seeing, what I'll say is the quality of of the plant that's been built. The front end, is an amazing, kind of system, likely going to need some tweaks there, and as well as kind of the system to create a renewable natural gas from the anaerobic digestion. That's extremely exciting to us. But just the opportunity that the waste is there. We have a permitted facility that has the space to convert other waste streams. I'll say kind of that ties it all together as kind of what's the future opportunity as well.
Super. So we have another question about financing. And the question is, did Whiteout commit capital to this project, or is it a promise? Sounds like Revere again. John, I don't know if you want to take that one. And
I think it's been answered before. I think it's similar to the prior question is capital committed? I think the answer I heard was yes, subject obviously to the ongoing due diligence.
All right, thanks. Okay, a series of questions here for the innovative team. Will they be making changes to the part of the plant that creates various byproducts? Have they seen the plant yet? Will they be meeting and consulting with Fiberite, the developer of the technology used in the plant? Where else in the United States does Innovative currently have waste facilities?
Sure. So we will potentially be making changes to the part of the plants that create various byproducts. They may have made byproducts at time, but we need to make sure that in the past, but we need to make sure they can do so economically. Yes, we've seen the plant, we've toured the plant, have technical folks looking at the plant. We intend to meet with Fiberite as well as all of the former vendors and equipment suppliers and technology providers to assess how potentially they could help the team, make sure that we maximize our chance of winning. And as I mentioned earlier, Innovative as a company does not have waste facilities in operation, but as I kind of mentioned, we'll pull that list together. But for example, myself, I have experience. I was just with a company called Continuous Materials. Continuous had mixed waste processing. We had demonstration and pilot facilities looking towards processing mixed waste to create the other valuable products. So have been firsthand involved with the processing of mixed waste.
Thanks. All right. Somebody is looking for a synopsis of White Oak's other holdings and ventures. Is that something that's available to the public? Right, perhaps on their website, or something that we could make available?
Yeah, yes, there's public filings out there that are available, as a registered investor that's available. I'll have to get a little more, I'll have to get back to you. Obviously, you can go to their website and, do Google searches and whatnot, but let me see if there's something else we could provide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add there, it's a lot of that information is of course confidential, company names, etc. It's all confidential information, but investment advisors are required to file what's called a Form ADV, which can give you a little bit more information about White Oak, and of course the website as well, where you can find additional.
Okay, thank you. Will the organization hire any educators to go out into the member communities to educate about the solid waste hierarchy, reduce, reuse? Do Mike or James, you want to take that?
So that's one thing we've talked about is, and also as part of the MRC management aspect is actually bringing somebody aboard for the educational process and the public knowledge, and also following the steps as we progress with this when we end up into a partnership. James and I just actually had that conversation earlier today, and we had mentioned there when we met again a couple weeks ago. So it is the plan. We just remember, see, a lot of these questions I'm noticing too is this due diligence just started, and these guys are under a very tight deadline to close on this facility. So right now their focus is there's a lot of intricacies to this facility. Their focus is getting as much data as they can and reviewing it so that we can get this deal done. And we kind of just have to prioritize our efforts right now.
Yeah, and I will say from the board's perspective that that's, education and outreach is something that we've long desired to be able to put resources towards and to do a much better job of. So that's something we'd be very excited about being able to pursue. So. Okay, are the permits that the DEP finally issued to Coastal for the plant still in effect? And I would say yes, because MRC was party to all of those permits, and those permits are now being transferred to Municipal Waste Solutions. So yes, nothing, and actually those permits are further along and now in place, much more so than they were under Coastal. So we're good on that. Sometimes people throw household hazardous waste and or universal waste into the regular trash. What processes are in place to deal with any of those wastes that may be pulled out of the waste stream? Mike or James?
You want me to take that, James?
Yeah, why don't you go?
Yeah, so the very start of the plant is it's a manual. So everything goes through a terror, a bag ripping source, and it's the largest belt. It's the very first platform. It's probably the platform that has the most staff on it. And those materials, they do their best because everything's pretty opened up. Like I said, it's a very wide space before it all narrows down and starts going to the different paths in the plant it's supposed to go. Identified at that time. And then there is a spot in the plant for those materials to go and properly be picked up and disposed of, whether that be with an e-waste company or with a hazardous material company. But does like little watch batteries or something get through? Possibly. I mean, not everything, but when it comes to cans of paints and things like that, larger items, they do a pretty good job at that first stage of getting that stuff out.
Thank you. Did I understand, James, correctly that Innovative currently has 2 employees?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, Kevin and myself are working on behalf of Innovative to push this forward in the plan. And obviously we have a team of what I'll say between the White Oak team, our technical consultants, advisors, a much broader team behind that. And the plan is obviously to onboard local staff and plant engineering and technical support early on.
All right. And I will say, we're running short on time. I'm going to start running through these questions very quickly, and I apologize for folks in advance, but we'll remind people that we do have a meeting coming up in less than 2 weeks that we encourage folks to be able to participate in, either in person or online, to ask further questions or get further clarification if they didn't get it today. So if reduce, reuse, recycle is the mantra, how will people learn to reduce if there's no effort or incentive to be conscious of what happens to their waste? Will there be educational opportunities for the public to visit the facility? Definitely. As we just said, we're looking forward to being able to implement a full force education and outreach effort. So we look forward to that. Are there plans for processing tires and or sludge? No. Certainly not in this phase. This facility was not designed for that. So that's not to say that in further phases that might not be something we can contemplate, but at this point, PFAS is such a concerning issue right now. It seems like the waste industry is in its infancy in terms of how to manage these chemicals, as everyone is still getting their arms around the issue. Does the plant have a plan for dealing with the sludge from AD, which will likely have PFAS in it? And I think James addressed that. We're going to have to just look and see where regulations and legislation and laws go with that, and we will respond to it accordingly. So thank you for all the transparency. So when can we all breathe a sigh of relief? Will we have to wait until June of 2024 to see the operation up and running, or can we look at this as a reason to celebrate? Well, like I said, we are very excited, but we're not counting our chickens yet. We do need to actually consummate a deal with Innovative or find alternate source of financing to reopen the facility, which we anticipate we will know the answer to that in June of this year. So I think in June we can celebrate. If Innovative completes their due diligence and closes on this deal, I would say all systems are go. So, and if they don't, then we'll be looking to have this be a more member ownership model, and we'll see if we can make that work. So, so we're close to the finish line, at least in terms of getting the resources we need to reopen the facility. So, but we're not quite there yet. Does MRC own the facility if the adventure fails to be successful a year or two after it opens? No, and I don't know who can answer that question. At this point, do we? I mean,
briefly. So the Municipal Waste Solutions owns the facility assets. So if this transaction goes through, Municipal Waste Solutions will still own the facility assets. They'll simply have two owners in essence. One will be membership interest owned by MRC. The other will be Innovative or some other special, whatever entity will be, that's the investment vehicle.
So, and I don't want to speak for Innovative, James, but my sense is that if you guys close on this deal and, by June 2nd, you don't anticipate this failing in the first year or two. You anticipate it going to be a success. And certainly it's going to take at least a year or two before you can evaluate where we're at, because it's going to take a year or two for this facility to essentially get up and running, hit its stride, have offtake agreements in place, and have all the markets established, and working out all of the various phases of ramping up the facility to its full potential. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all. But
No, that's it. You're right on, Karen. Right. So our goal over this next 2 months is to have that conviction to indeed close on the transaction with an eye towards this isn't something that's going to take months. We have to put in the work, put in the capital, enough sustaining capital to get us through to that point where, in 24, we say, yes, it's doing exactly what we all thought it was intended to do. So that,
Okay.
again, I think the proof is in the close, right?
Yeah, thank you. Follow up to reduce waste would allow municipality. I'm sorry, I don't understand this question. Follow up to reduce waste would allow municipalities to renegotiate contracts. Is that possible? You'll have to ask that question again another time in another way, because I'm not sure what that means. Will towns have to find their own solutions for bulky waste, tires, or will the plant be able to handle those waste streams? I'll remind folks that there's a list of acceptable and unacceptable waste. And, A de minimis amount of tires, I think, was considered acceptable waste, perhaps. Bulky waste is not. So we'll be reminding our members of what's on the acceptable waste list and the unacceptable waste list. So you need to spend another 20 million on top of the original 80 million to make it work. Well, so I just want to remind folks that when Coastal had to close and they ran out of money, they were on the verge of spending some money to work out the last kinks in the facility that they identified as part of the startup process. That is what this $20 million is going to do. That was 3 years ago and like a lot of inflation ago. So costs have gone up. So we know that that cost is going to be higher. And the other thing that we're doing with this 20 million, and as Mike mentioned, a good portion of the 20 million is working capital so that we can do the capital improvements that are needed, get the facility accepting waste, and then make it through 1.5 to 2 years before we'll have all of the revenue streams in place and the facility generating the revenues that we anticipated to be able to generate from its the commodities that it'll be generating. So that's what the 20 million is. Yes, it's on top of the 80 million facility, but we're working with a good base. There's a lot of equipment there. It's in very good shape. Mike has done a fantastic job maintaining that facility in excellent condition. So that's not the issue. If it worked, why did the plant close? I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that question. We have information on our website that details why that happened. And you can look there on our website. In particular, we've covered that in prior meetings. Will Innovative examine the possibility of producing biogas that meets Bangor gas spec, and what other end uses for biogas are being looked at? You want to handle that quickly, James?
Sure. Yes. Short answer. Yes. Looking at producing biogas. That's kind of the primary use is potential reinjection, but also looking for on-site use for our own thermal needs.
Yeah, and I'll remind folks that the Bangor gas pipeline runs right across our property, and that all of that infrastructure is in place to be able to put into the pipeline. We just need to put in the scrubbers to make the gas the quality that the Bangor gas needs. It really impressed. This all sounds so good, and James seems like the real deal. Well, thank you for that comment. Do we foresee any required? Yes.
I do apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to go back to one question about the bulky waste and the tires. I think what we want to do is be a solution for the communities. And so to the extent that any community is struggling with a particular waste stream, we're here to approach this with an open mind and try to find solutions. So the short answer is we're open for business, and we want to work with our partner communities to solve those issues. And so I think it's a matter of putting our heads together to figure out how we can solve some of the waste issues that may or may not be resolved through the plant in its current form, and what can we do to modify the plant to solve any and all of the community's needs.
Thank you, Tom, and I appreciate you pointing that out. I mean, that certainly is MRC's feeling, is we want to help our members solve their waste issues. I'm glad you guys are supportive of that. But at the same time, we do need to remind our members of what their current contract agreement states, and that things that are outside of those contracts, like bulkies and those sorts of things, will be something we'll be talking about, in the future. But we see that there's a real opportunity as being, a central location and a fixed point where waste is already coming, to make that an easier thing for communities to handle and manage. So
Yeah,
we're glad you're on board with helping come up with a solution for that.
yeah, absolutely. I think we just want to make sure we're laser focused here on getting the plant up and running and start taking the waste. And there's kind of no limit to, bolting on these other these other solutions for the communities, like Tom mentioned. So.
Great. Well, we just have a few questions left in a few more minutes. I think we'll be able to get through them. Do we foresee any required upgrades to infrastructure such as roads, sewer, water that may need to be considered in consultation with the town of Hamden?
So Mike, I'll take that and you can chime in. As of right now, no, it looks like, what was built was, well-built facility with all the infrastructure that's needed for the operation as we see it going forward. We'll of course be reaching out to town of Hampton and others to just confirm, what that availability is of those utilities. But right now, looks like it's in good shape.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we have some commitments when we restart the lines and stuff of flushing them and everything else, but no expense was wasted on the infrastructure that was put in. So it's a pretty good infrastructure. And I think it's all adequate at this time for what you folks are looking to do.
Great. Okay, will Innovative be familiarizing themselves with and following Maine statutes and rules for solid waste?
Yes,
Better.
yes, of course, yes.
To that end, I believe, I understand you actually are meeting with DEP next week, talking about, some of the issues in terms of regulation and oversight and permits and things like that. So,
Yep, correct.
great. All right, and the final comment is just a thank you for introducing the Innovative team and for such an informative town hall. Bravos and kudos to MRC. Well, thank you very much for that. And does anybody else, any board members have any questions or comments that they'd like to make? All right, well, I just want to really thank Innovative and their team for taking the time to be here today and doing such a great job introducing themselves to our members and to the other interested parties out there. And we are very excited, like I said, working with you and seeing what you all have to bring to the table. So
Cool.
Thank you. And I do also want to put thanks out there to the MRC board and especially to Mike Carroll, John Pottle, and George Aronson, who've been working really hard to put this agreement together, work with the Innovative team to get them the information that they need and to make this a success. So thank you. Remember, everyone, we've got a regular quarterly board meeting on April 26th. That will be taking place, I believe, Sophie, at Orono Town Hall. Yes. The board meeting begins at 10 a.m. and a finance committee will precede that. It's open to the public. If anybody wants to come in person, it will also be broadcast online. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you very much for you taking the time today to listen to this update. Hope everybody has a great holiday weekend.
Oh, yeah.